time for Taking Care of Business on Midlands 103. With thanks to the local enterprise offices of Leash, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Hello and good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Taking Care of Business. I'm Ronan Berry. It's January 2026. Let's do it again for the rest of the year ahead and see what it has in store for Irish and Midlands businesses. So, coming up on the show this evening, does the new year mean a potential new career path for you? Well, and if so, have you ever considered a career in home care? Another home care company in the country, they've over 4,000 employees. They've announced they're looking for another 500 and many of those jobs are in the Midlands region. It's a sector that maybe sometimes you overlook. You might have never considered it as a potential place for you to go working in, but believe you me, many people have transitioned from various sectors into that very area. Find out all about that in about 15 minutes time as well. Also from publicity, and be it social media, be it traditional media, be it radio, whatever platforms you use, how can you actually cut through the noise in the year ahead? Well, Jack Murray of MediaHQ will detail practical ways to simplify PR, tell stronger stories, and also how to use AI intelligently without losing the human element of what you were doing. And later on, you'll hear from Tony McCormack TD for Offaly on the local business impact of the national policy being brought in by government. He'll also look at key announcements from an Offaly infrastructure perspective and touch on some of the challenges facing SMEs as we kick off 2026. So, as I say, a pleasure to have you here again for the year ahead. And what better way to kick off for the new year than to go over and talk to John McCann from MCM Accounting. And John, as you know, a familiar voice on Taking Care of Business and on Midlands 103, because the start of this year was quite significant from a business perspective. We saw two major changes to employment law. Pension auto-enrolment. Yes, after all the years and all the talk and all the threats and all the promises, the 1st of January saw the start of the auto-enrolment scheme, but also a rise in the minimum wage up to €14.15 per hour, which, bear in mind, is still less than the €14.65 that was anticipated earlier last year, and to bring us up to more of a living wage. So still, employees on the minimum wage have gone from $13.50 at the end of December up to $14.15 now. Can all that have an impact on businesses? Recent reports on insolvencies in the hospitality sector show that actually the rate is similar enough to what it was last year, still higher than the year before. But are we likely to see further impact there, particularly as that VAT rate, the VAT in hospitality, will not drop back to 9% until the 1st of July this year? So let's get stuck into that with John McCann. John, I believe about 90% of businesses across the country, it's over 75,000 businesses, or 85,000, have registered already or signed up for the auto-enrolment scheme. So that's a positive. How has it been, though? We're a couple of days in. From your perspective as an accountancy firm, have you noticed it yet, or what kind of advice are you giving to your clients at this stage of the year?
Good evening, Ronan. How are you? And Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to all your listeners and that sort of thing. And hopefully 2026 will be a prosperous new year. Okay, let's deal with the question you raised. Auto-enrolment. I must say it's an exceptionally slick and very professional system that has actually been introduced by the government. I actually worked it myself today, and I was absolutely shocked just how slick and easy it was to auto-enroll. So let's remember, let's put this into context. Just because businesses have auto-enrolled, that doesn't mean that the employees have auto-enrolled, or they may very well be exempt. So it's a mandatory requirement to auto-enroll. And I think if we look at and get it to the point, certainly, I think anybody looking at this, there's no doubt about it, the concept of providing for a pension is absolutely important. It would be my view that in the past, 2008, the government absolutely made a mess of things. It meant that housing was very expensive, which in effect caused the scenario whereby normally people would actually, at the age of 65, have paid for their house, or alternatively, they would be in comfortable rented accommodation. That's not going to be the case anymore, because when you reach 65, you're either going to have to be paying large mortgage or alternatively paying large rent. So the concept here is that they had to do something, and people had to put money into the old pot. So auto-enrollment, or the concept of pension, is absolutely vital. They have done it very, very well. There's no doubt about it. I think the outcome will be interesting to move forward, because it certainly put a cost on business, and as it goes on to the next 2 to 3 years, the various percentages that the employers have to put in is going to increase, as well as minimum wage increases. And I think this is very damaging to employment. I've never heard the government turn around and say, do you know what we'll do is we're going to cut down your PRSI, your employer PRSI, which at the moment is 11.18%, which they increased, and they're going to increase it next year. So the government are doing nothing about this. What they're doing is they're pushing it on the people and pushing it on the employers, and that's not good. So that would be a perspective that I would put forward. And certainly the minimum wage increase has gone up by about 4.6%, plus the auto-enrolment, where the employer has to put in 1.5%. So work out the sums there, lads. It's actually putting a huge pressure on small businesses. And Irish small businesses, while some are trading very well, there's some that are trading on the borderline. And you mentioned hospitality. Yeah, there's going to be a lot more victims, I'm afraid, on that one.
Absolutely. And I mean, Adrian Cummins, the CEO of the Restaurants Association of Ireland, is quoted in the media today as saying that, it's a high cost industry. So that means the margins are being eroded already every day. And this is further exacerbated by the auto-enrolment and the increase in minimum wage. Is that a sector, do you think, that once again is going to really feel the heat in the next couple of months?
Well, I would say it's just not the the hospitality industry. I do believe it's going to be kind of retail. There's not many people that are going to come out of retail saying, yeah, it was a fantastic year. And the real issue is, and the stupidity that I see, that the government tend to look at these very large surpluses on corporation tax. Where are they coming from? They're not listening to really educated, intelligent people, this Council of Ireland, this Economic Council of Ireland, who are actually very smart people who can actually see what the story is. All these politicians say is, the money's coming in, but they don't realise that the hospitality industry and the retail industry employs vast amount of people. And, there's no point in having all these profits and corporation tax receipts coming in if people are unemployed, because if these people are unemployed, the corporation tax receipts of these large companies will still come in, and the government will live in the noddy land.
Absolutely. Well, we've announcement there today of 17%, a rise last year to almost 33 billion in corporation tax receipts. But you mentioned that hospitality sector and those sectors that employ so many people. There was a new tourism strategy launched late last year, in December last year, really showing that they want Ireland to be more open. They wanted to get away from seasonal tourism. No point having that if you haven't got the businesses and the people there to provide a service.
I was looking at one of these European surveys. Now, look, surveys can tell you whatever they want, Ronan, to be honest, you can make it. But it was actually reasonably sensible in what it said, that there's a big issue in Switzerland, Sweden, the various, and Ireland, where they would have actually been very proactive and coming into kind of positive numbers in terms of tourism. All these countries, the reality is they're dropping and dropping and dropping. And if you increase costs and the government are putting the money in, of course, that's a misspending money. I won't even go on that agenda, how they misspend money. Their job to me should be actually to reduce the cost of doing business and living in Ireland. And that's why we have the problem we have. And I would say is that for those small Irish businesses, be very smart, be very wise, watch what's going on. I mean, you talked about insolvencies. We can touch on that there in a minute if you want.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose we're trying to keep it positive too, that I know they are sectors that are challenged, but anywhere where there's high margins or low margins and a lot of labour cost as well is going to understandably be under pressure in the year ahead. And as you say, some of those corporation tax receipts will be there irrespective of that. Unfortunately, that's the reality, not to be misled or misguided by that. But I think that point of reinvestment back in, because if we touch on insolvencies, and yes, reports again today from PwC are saying that the number of insolvencies, particularly in retail and hospitality, has declined. Now it's down 20 from last year. It's still higher than what was there in 2023, but some commentators are speculating that that's just as the calm before the storm, that there will be a raft of insolvencies maybe in the first 6 to 8 months of this year. Would you tend to agree with that, or again, is that a little
absolutely.
bit... Okay.
Absolutely. I'm just involved, and I'm in a liquidation there involving a retail sector furniture supplier, and it's absolutely horrendous to see what's actually happened. And I spent a bit of time talking to I suppose, a lady that I spar quite a lot in revenue. I've lost time for her, but I still spar quite a lot with her because we may have different fundamental views. But essentially she said, look, John, the reality is they made an absolute mess of this kind of shelving and putting by of taxes. And the government now are just saying, look, lads, we have to get this money in. A number of these people are the hospitality industry. They never managed it properly when it actually happened at first. So revenue is just going to have to close these businesses down. And a number of these are hospitality, and because they should never have been let operate as it is. And then now that the problem is with that is that banks have taken the view that they're not going to support hospitality. And I have one or two clients who are in, I won't say difficult situations, but certainly, have to kind of argue their point that they're actually good operators, which they should never have to, because they are good operators, but there's just a perception. That's it. It's policy, and that's the view.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to see.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the next budget is still a good 9-10 months away. The VAT rate dropping in July, will it make any real difference to a business that's potentially struggling now or can see a lot of struggles?
Simple answer is no. The simple answer is no. Like it's been an important issue over the last number of years, where it's kind of 4.5% of your margin, which is an important point. So it means for every 100,000, there's 4,500 be taken extra by the government. And for an industry that employs so many people and gets very few incentives to employ people, it in itself is not going to break the camels. It's not going to break the back. It is that fundamentally Ireland has become an exceptionally expensive place to go and eat in, and et cetera, et cetera. It's been reflected in minimum wage. It's been reflected in high taxes. It's been reflected in high rates. And the bottom line is, one of the biggest employers of staff are being damaged by the government, because they're taking money and giving it and creating absolutely nonsense quango organisations which produce nothing to the economy and produce nothing to the taxpayer.
Well, we started off with you with a positive about the auto-enrolment scheme. I thought first I had the wrong John McCann, and the real John is coming out now. But if you think that VAT rate as well, a lot of the talk was it'll cost the Exchequer 500 or 600 million euros a year.
And I'm going to stop it there.
Go on.
I'm going to stop it there, Ronan, and it's one point I make up. It does not cost the Exchequer any money. It means that the Exchequer are not taking money from the working
absolutely.
Well,
country. I'm just going to say, if you think of that,
that's what we always must remember.
Yeah, and if you think of that as a percentage of that 33 billion euro that's there, really and truly, if it is going to could help to save a sector, surely some action can be taken. John, this is one I think we'll carry on throughout the year on the show. Let's see how we can
see how it goes,
and how we can get practical supports into the industry in order to keep it there. We all like to go and support local businesses, restaurants, cafes, local retailers. But when people are squeezed and the cost of living is high, it's harder for people to do that. Surely there's something we can do. But let's make that our objective and our resolution for 2026.
Well, let's keep an eye on it.
We will, of course.
And the one thing I would say is just to close the point, and without being negative, I'm a liquidator by it's part of the work I do. But if companies are running into trouble, don't sell your home to actually keep a business going. If it's not going to work, talk to a professional, because I think you need to take the advice and don't damage yourself for the benefit of the state.
Absolutely. And even I know accountants will tell you as well, even if a business needs to engage with revenue, it is always the best approach than trying to avoid them, or, as you say, maybe sell your house to get over that. But anyway, John, as always, a pleasure.
It's not going to work, Ronan. And as always, a pleasure.
Likewise, we'll catch up with you again. That's John McCann there from MCM Accounting in Tullamore. Now, can you imagine if a multinational company had 4,000 plus employees in the country, and then they announced at the start of the year they're looking for 500 more people? We would have brass bands out playing. We'd be rolling out whatever red carpets, and we'd be taking pictures and having it all over the national news. But imagine if the company that already has 4,000 employees and now wants 500 more, and it sometimes happens without even too much of a media frenzy, or because it's just what they're doing and it's just reflective of amazing growth they've had over the past year. Find out all about that in just a couple of moments.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Still to come this evening, we will be talking about how you can cut through the noise in 2026. So we'll have some practical ways to simplify PR, how you can tell stronger stories about your business, and of course how to use AI intelligently without losing the human focus. Also, Tony McCormack TD will be along to speak about two major announcements regarding infrastructure in in County Offaly. But before the break, I mentioned that if you had a company that had well over 4,000 employees and they announced that they wanted another 500 this year, there would be huge fanfare if they were a pharmaceutical company moving in from China or from some far-flung part of the world, and it'd be painted as a story that shows the kind of resistance to tariffs and how Ireland Inc. is still booming, particularly on the back of those record corporation tax receipts today. But what happens when a company with a really strong footing in the Midlands makes a similar announcement? Sometimes there's not as much fanfare, but when you look behind it, you find that there are huge opportunities for people. So if you're thinking of maybe changing a career in 2026 and you're looking for some meaningful work, Dovida, Ireland's leading home care provider, is expanding its team across the Midlands and across the country in response to a growing demand for in-home supports. Lorraine McLaughlin is the General Manager with Dovida Midlands, and she joins me now to talk about the opportunities that are available and why people from retail and hospitality are making the switch to care, and how flexible supported roles can make a real difference in our local communities. And if you wanted a sense of how local they are, they recently picked up the Outstanding Large Business of the Year award at the Mullingar Chamber Awards, a night at which Lorraine was there to collect that award. Good evening, Lorraine.
Well, how are you, Ronan? Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic, Lorraine. This is another major announcement by Dovida. I'm looking for another 500 roles. I suppose, give us a bit of context. Tell us about Dovida nationally and then the footprint that you have in the Midlands.
Yeah, so nationally, Dovida has been providing home care for 21 years in Ireland. Locally then in the Midlands, we are providing care for about the last 15 years. So we're around a while. We're doing what we're doing a while. So locally here, we look after Longford, Westmeath and Offaly in our office here. So we've quite a big footprint in the Midlands.
And again, those employment figures, like well over 4,000 at this stage, and clearly a big need for more people to join.
Absolutely. Like, our aging population is growing. People do want to stay in their own homes. So definitely the need out there for more caregivers is there and is always there, I suppose.
And I suppose, like any business that maybe is expanding at the rate that yours is, it's hard maybe find people whose primary qualifications or whose background was in that care area in the first place. Yeah. But this is where you want to kind of show that there are opportunities for people really across any sector, or in spite of their background or whatever level of training they may or may not have.
100%. Like, one of the questions we ask, whether it's someone coming on board as a caregiver or even in our office here, is, have you cared for someone? Do you know someone that has been cared for? And we all do. And I think when people have that awareness of what we do, even at that basic level, the support and training is there for them. You know, a lot of people we'd have coming in, and they've come in from hospitality, but they may have helped care for a grandparent or a parent. People in retail that may want, to have more flexibility in the role. So that's why people from those sectors are coming to us. But we also have parents who want to return to work, and they need to have those hours that work around their family, because people have other things going on, outside of work as well, and they need that flexibility.
Is that flexibility, is that a key demand and really ask for most people at this point? And is that maybe the secret sauce that you can offer people that?
Absolutely it is, yeah. Like, a lot of our caregivers starting with, we're working around what they're already do. And a lot of them, are maybe on social welfare payments that they can only do a certain amount of hours, or they're on a carer's allowance where they already have someone in their family they're caring for. So we need to be able to work around that and give them the flexibility in their role as a caregiver here.
And I'm sure bringing somebody through that process and showing them that, look, this is okay, this won't affect if you are getting welfare benefits or that you can do that, you can still have a job, and therefore bring in a few more pound each week.
Absolutely, and that's key to people, and we work with that. Whatever amount of hours they can work, we work with that, and we get them up to those hours so that they can still do that, and then work around the commitments that they may have outside of work. I think that's key to it, because to have that flexibility, that's the type of people we're getting in, to know that genuinely do care and want to give a little bit back to their community as well.
And the hours then, so if somebody's listening and they're kind of, you've caught their interest now, the typical hours that somebody does per week, is that also flexible, or have you them kind of broken down into? Yeah, okay.
No, that's flexible. I mean, a lot of our caregivers come on, they want full-time work, they want to work their 37 and a half or 40 hours a week. We have caregivers that just want to work part-time. And then we have contracted caregivers that want that contract, want that, continuity of, to know what they're getting paid every week as well. So we can offer really whatever caregivers need when they're coming in.
And is there much training involved then in becoming a caregiver?
There is. I mean, there's certain qualifications a caregiver needs, and definitely we're very supportive in our training, even from when a caregiver rings up to inquire. We have a really supportive recruitment process. We have recruiters in-house here as well, and a HR department. And then we do our induction training in-house, so it's great. The caregivers come in, they meet the whole team, they're brought through the training they need to go out and do their first call. And then once they're ready to go, that's when they would meet our care management team, and the care managers bring them out with experienced caregivers that already work for us. So it's really supportive, because I can imagine, and we've had feedback from caregivers, like it's quite nerve-wracking to go in and do your first call, going into a house you may not have been in there. So we need to be really supportive of that and aware of that kind of anxiety, I suppose, around it. So there's a lot of training, a lot of support for our caregivers starting off.
But no shortage of work at the minute too, because you touched on it there to start, like, you know, an ageing population. Can you put that into context for us? Because I know I was speaking to John there beforehand about pensions, and we know there's a great need to try and diffuse that pension time bomb that's growing there. But in terms of what you're seeing, I guess, in terms of an ageing population and that desire for people to stay at home longer, particularly because people are at large living longer.
Yep, and that's exactly it. People are living longer, but they do want to stay at home. They do want to stay in their own home, where they probably have family living around them, or where they're part of their community. You know, they like having someone come into their own house to look after them there, instead of, you know, going into residential care or something like that. So people do want to stay at home, and I think we saw that a lot, like during COVID, where that's where people were safe as well.
And particularly, I suppose, if somebody only needs a certain level of intervention or care, it might even make the chances of them staying at home even more likely as well. But it sounds like a phenomenally busy business for someone like yourself who's heavily involved in operations. What's a typical day look like for you?
I remember when I started here, when I was being interviewed, I was told you have to be really comfortable with walking out the door and not having your to-do list done. And that's what a day looks like. So it is, you come in with great plans and you're going to do all this, and then something happens. But it's really busy, but it's just a really satisfying job to do as well. You know, it's really, like, we've a great team in the office. We've a fantastic team of caregivers, and it's great to work with them every day. So you're just pretty much coming in, getting the head down and getting through the day with whatever it's thrown at you.
It's lovely to start the year, like, especially in January, and not be talking about goal setting and resolutions. To have someone saying, look, you mightn't get through everything on your to-do list in a day, and that's normal, and that's accepted.
And that's normal.
That's refreshing.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Tomorrow's another day.
It's good to hear as well for people. So I suppose, look, take us through some, like, the opportunities that are coming available. If somebody wants to go there and maybe put in an expression of interest, how can they go about do that? And what's the one thing that somebody might be thinking that they're going, maybe it's not for me? What would you say to them here now?
I think, and definitely through interviewing and talking to caregivers when we meet them out and about, or potential caregivers, they feel that it might be, they mightn't have enough qualifications. Like, I know certain people would think, well, I did help care for my grandparent, but was that really care, and I wasn't doing it? But it is. You know, like, if you have that care in nature, we can help with everything else. But, like, to get in touch, go onto our website, Dovida.ie, and it's all on there. And also feel free to ever reach out into the office here. Give us a buzz. We have loads of, keep an eye on our Facebook page. We have loads of days out in the next month where we'll be out meeting people if you want to ask any questions as well.
Fantastic. Well, it's an amazing, like, to talk about 4,000 employees already, looking for another 500, and by the sounds of things, that's probably only the start of it. All the very best over the year, and look, if you've any days coming up with that, give me a shout. We'll give them a bit of airtime here as well and get the word out there. But for now, Lorraine McLaughlin, General Manager, Dovida Midlands, thank you for that this evening.
Thank you so much, Ronan. Take care.
An absolute pleasure. And there you go. I'm sure there's not too many of you listening that haven't cared for somebody or don't have some form of home care for a relative or a friend or a neighbour, that's, you know, whatever else it is. You could turn that into a career. It doesn't have to be full time. It could be part time. It can fit around your life, as Lorraine has just said. So definitely, if you want to check it out, Dovida.ie, and keep an eye on their socials too. Now, it is 2026. It is January. So one thing that any business really could do, and one place they could throw their focus for the next couple of months, is on the whole kind of PR side of things. What are you doing from a marketing perspective, and what are you not doing, and what are practical steps you can take to make sure you are really maximising that great story about your business? Because this show is all about stories of great businesses, and the more those stories are told, the better that business does, and the more people get interested and the more people want to buy from it or use their services. So what are you not doing from a PR perspective? We'll find out very shortly what you should be doing.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
So what are you doing from a PR perspective for your business for 2026? Have you even considered setting some goals or targets around it? Or do you find it is almost a quagmire? You don't know where to go. Should I be on social media? Should I be on TikTok? How many videos should I be doing? Should I even bother with media like the radio anymore? Is there any point, or is it all just online? Or what does Elon want me to do? And do you just get lost in it? And ultimately what gets lost is the fantastic story of your business. Well, how can you make sure in 2026 that you don't lose any of that gold dust, the stuff that maybe sets you apart from your competitors, the stuff that could win you that next contract or that next batch of customers? Well, the good news is there are some practical steps that you can take to do that. And Jack Murray is the founder and CEO of MediaHQ. He's originally from not too far from us here, just across the Shannon in Ballinasloe in County Galway. And Jack has kind of come up with a list of key things that you can do this year to really make sure that you get the best from all that great work you're doing. Very good evening, Jack, and Happy New Year to you.
Ron, how are you? Yeah, you too. How are you getting on?
Not too bad at all. Well, you're going to kind of make us all sit up now and listen closely, because you probably see, would it be fair and say, over the years, loads of great stuff companies are doing, but they're not logging it. They're not, writing down the great achievements they have, and therefore not promoting themselves properly.
Yeah, and in my day job at MediaHQ, we sell a piece of software that helps PR people communicate. So I suppose I'm in a lucky cockpit seat where I can see every day. There's a table in the back end of our software, and I can see everything people are sharing and how people interact with it. So I've done a list of 10 things. The great thing about this time of the year is there's a wonderful time. People generally reset at their birthday and at the start of the year. So let me give you some direction and give the listeners 10 practical things that they can act on, that they can get better coverage for their stories in 2026. So the first one is focus on what matters and measure it. The most destructive thing you can do in communications is ask somebody, what do you want to achieve? Is it sell more seats? Is it raise more money? Is it create awareness? Is it to, send someone to Africa for a charity? Write down what the overall objective is. The people who succeed are the people who know what they want to do, and then they can use communications to get that done. The second one then, increase your PR productivity. Most people that I deal with, Ronan, they don't, their big problem is they don't communicate enough. If you and I said we were going to get fit in 2026 and we went to the gym once a month, we might get very ill on the third occasion because we're not fit at all. So the more you communicate, the better it is. And it doesn't matter if it's a LinkedIn post, if it's a TikTok, if it's a piece on the radio, get out there and start communicating. Number 3, build one new audience. It could be YouTube channel, it could be TikTok, but see where your customers and the people you need to communicate with are hanging out, and try and build an audience there. Try and build new followers and committed people in a new place. Number 4, embrace artificial intelligence with human judgment. Once a week, I meet our users who use our software who aren't getting the results that they want. And the single problem most of them have is that they aren't communicating properly and their stories aren't good enough. And when I ask them, are you using AI? Some of them use free AI, but they're not paying for it. The great thing with artificial intelligence now, if you're not great at creativity or news hooks or angles, you can feed it a general idea and it will give you a really, really sharp angle that you can act on. So it doesn't matter if it's Claude, if it's Perplexity or ChatGPT, get at least one paid account. They're not expensive. They're about 120, 130 euros. Number 5, and you'll like this one, Ronan, pitch stronger stories to journalists.
Yes.
You're in a place where you're getting stuff in all of the time. The first rule is listen to the program, understand what's there. If it's a business show, they need a business angle. If it's a business angle with something that's quite local along with it that can resonate, and I'll give you a good local example before we go here of someone who does this really well, but listen to the programme, pitch it, understand what the journalist's needs are, and if you pitch a strong story, the journalist will thank you. And guess what? They'll ask you. I've been on this programme before. They'll ask you back, right? Number 6, start a brand newsroom. Get one place online where you share all your stories, and they're like bricks in a wall, and each one makes the wall stronger. And collect all of the stuff that you're talking about, your brand or your organisation, in one place, and you will generate a theme or a frequency of content that will be really, really powerful. Number 7, start or restart a newsletter. Destination communications works. And when I say destination communications, we're all addicted to WhatsApp. We're all addicted to our email. So a newsletter is a very good point. Every now and again, when I'm really bored, I'll go shopping in the commercial side of my promotions in my Gmail, and I'll read newsletters and I'll see what brands are doing, and I'll get a good offer. But it's a good place in which to communicate. Number 8, learn a new communication skill. Do you want to be able to make a video, make an audio clip, learn how to do a reel, stand in front of a room and captivate them with a presentation? What could you learn about communications better in 2026 that you're not doing now? And really push yourself out of your comfort zone. Number 9, relearn how to tell a story. We all know that storytelling is something that's really innate to Irish people. And all of the research shows that we grow up and it's a natural ability that everybody has. But when we get out into the working world, we forget this. And lean into the really good culture of Irish storytelling and start listening to the stories that resonate with you. And it doesn't matter if you're being told it's by your aunt, your granny, or your best friend. And try and bring that to how you communicate from a business point of view. And then number 10 of 10, I wrote a book a couple of years ago, and I think I was on here talking to you about it, called The Magic Slice, How to Master the Art of Storytelling for Business. And The Magic Slice is that wonderful place where what you want to talk about completely aligns with what your audience wants to hear. And it's about purposeful communication. It's about knowing your mission. It's about knowing your audience. And it's also about knowing those topics that when you talk about them, people really listen, and they really listen clearly. So figure out what the magic slice of your brand or organisation is. A great local brand, Glenesque. It's organic. It's part of a huge global business now, but it still maintains its local links to Offaly and to the Midlands through its support of GA and lots of local causes. So there's a couple of things it does really, really well. It does that entrepreneurship story really well, even though it's part of a bigger organisation now. And it's a really, really good example of a local business that communicates well, that knows its audiences and knows how to get out there and connect its message. So they're the 10 things. And the good news is every day there's a radio program that needs to be filled, there's a podcast that needs to be filled, there's someone who has a cursor blinking on a web page and they want it full. And if you do some of these things, you will get your story out there and you will get more coverage.
Absolutely. And there is each one of those I could start on picking aspects of it, but some that really jumped out at me there, that thing around pitching a stronger story to a journalist. And you're absolutely right. It could be, if you think of the last guest that was on, Lorraine from Dovida, you could pitch that as kind of a human interest story about giving care in the home and looking at an ageing population. But if you look at the business case behind that, it's an organisation with 4,000 plus employees who are recruiting another 500. And that was pitched to me by email. But I picked up on it because it was a business pitch. And I'm sure there was various variants of that press release as well.
And you know what? Back in the day before artificial intelligence, there was a certain group of ninjas who were brilliant at ferreting out news hooks, news angles. And I would meet them every now and again in some of the work that I would do. But the beauty of artificial intelligence is you can give a raw idea to someone and say, look, I'm thinking of pitching this to local radio. Can you give me a sharper angle here? And you know what? It'll give you a sharper angle. And it'll just elevate your stuff up to, what do you need? In the transaction, you need a journalist to be able to read the subject line and think, that'll go well on my programme. And that's what people need to tune into. They need to make that decision easier for the journalist.
But that's also a good case in point for keeping the human element of it, because if you have a human who's familiar with the show or the style of a show or a station, they can then put that touch and that nuance into that press release, even if AI has come up maybe with a couple of suggested hooks.
Yeah. So, and great stories are about people. The great stories are always about people. They're about people's emotions, things that happen to people for good and for bad. But if you have a really good human angle at the middle of your story, it'll always be better.
I liked your ninth one there was about relearn how to tell a story, and I agree with you fully, because what really resonates with people who listen to this show is the stories. It's the story of the business owner, the person in the business, because I think for some people they kind of realise, yes, everybody else maybe has the same struggles, everyone's facing the same challenges, everybody, people are, it's kind of like a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think like platforms like radio or maybe, online platforms are great for people sharing those stories, and it's so important and so overlooked.
And it's funny, like we hear a lot of businesses that came out of COVID. And the funny thing about the COVID thing, it's an inbuilt story. I was going along with my life and then boom, this thing happened. And I thought, oh no, I need to do something. I need to change direction, or I saw a need, or I started a coffee shop, or I did this. But that's what storytelling is. If someone, you unveil a person and then their need comes up really quickly and something happens to them. And the beauty of communications is people want to know that now. They want to know the process. They want to know the backstory. It doesn't all have to be shiny and wonderful. It can have some jagged edges, but as long as it's real and full of emotion, people will resonate with it.
And one that I think will resonate with a lot of listeners actually is that idea of starting a brand newsroom. And you said have that one place where everything that you're sharing can be housed in it. What do you recommend there? Is that a section on the website? Is it a particular channel? What do you typically recommend clients do there?
Yeah, look, the most important thing here is this thing of knowing where your audience hangs out. We did a really big piece of research in MediaHQ, and we realised that our biggest referrer of business was existing software users who moved to a new business. And we've created this whole nice gift pack when somebody who's a user of the software moves somewhere. It's a lovely coffee cup, lovely leather notebook that says your story continues. And I think the place to house your stories are the place that your users visit. Now, you might decide to house them off your website. LinkedIn might be really good for you. YouTube might be a great place. You might be on TikTok, and you might be involved in commercial stuff on Instagram. So there's no hard and fast rules, but the one thing I would say is always hang out where your customers or the people you're communicating to are hanging out.
Absolutely, as sound advice, and I think it's a good one for people to look at too. Is if you need to call on that content, and I see it with some people, they get nominated or shortlisted for an award, and they can't find the good stuff. They can't find the stories or what happened back then, or was there a press release, and maybe there was stuff done, but they just can't find it because it's not been curated and stored in one place. So I think lots of great tips on it there. So you've given people plenty to think about, I think, for the year ahead. Jack, it's an absolute pleasure as always talking to you.
Thanks, Ronan. Good to talk to you.
And we'll catch up with you again soon. That's Jack Murray there, the founder and CEO of MediaHQ. MediaHQ.com is their website. Check that out. Time for a quick break. After that, we're going to speak to Tony McCormack TD for Offaly, because just before the Christmas break there were some major announcements from an infrastructure perspective for County Offaly.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Tony McCormack is a Fianna Fáil TD for Offaly. He's also their spokesperson on small and medium enterprises and retail. He's a local business owner, was a county councillor before that for a number of years, and was always heavily involved with things like the Tullamore Chamber of Commerce and the Midlands Gateway Chamber when it was in existence. I got up with Tony recently because there'd been some major announcements about infrastructure projects around the Midlands. One was the N52 Link Road in Durrow, County Offaly, but also an announcement that Offaly County Council had secured a land bank for potential development of a new IDA site in the town.
Even before I became a TD, I'd been campaigning quite strongly with Barry Cowan, and we went and we met with the Junior Minister for Transport, who was Jack Chambers at the time, and we brought people from the area, the principal, local advocates, to Jack Chambers, and to explain the seriousness of the road. You've got to remember, this road was actually on the roads programme twice before. It came off back in the recession in 2012, and then it went back on. And then when we had the Minister for Transport, the Green Minister for Transport, and there was a commitment there where 2/3 of the money was spent on public transport and 1/3 on roads, it again came off the roads programme. So it was about getting it back on, and we got it back on only here in December, which is fantastic. Now, it's not going to happen overnight because the whole building of a road process takes time. So if we were, with everything going according to plan, it won't be built until about 2032. But with the new work that Jack Chambers has been doing as on the infrastructure report and the 30 recommendations that came out of that, that's all about speeding up infrastructure. We used to be able to build roads in half the time in the noughties. We should be able to get back to that. So we'll be hoping that that road will then be built before 2032.
Those capacity numbers you gave, they indicate that it's a hugely important route. I suppose it's traffic coming off the motorway Kilbeggan, maybe heading for Portlaoise or trying to get southbound as well. So as well as the safety concerns there, it's a key piece maybe in that jigsaw puzzle of really opening up the Midlands from a...
Absolutely, yeah. And I suppose it also shows the fact as well how busy a town Tullamore is, and the amount of business that goes on in Tullamore, because I would always look at Tullamore as being a service town to the areas around it, maybe a service town even to the Midlands. We have a lot of stuff happening here. We have the hospital. We have a lot of jobs happening around the hospital and the HSE who are based here in Tullamore. We have lots of other companies that are contributing hugely to the local economy and providing jobs. And again, that shows how busy we are. And in order for us to keep that growth going, we needed that road for transportation, for making it easy access.
Tullamore also boasts an IDA business park in Shra, and yes, Cardinal Health will be closing there, officially closing early next year in that, but still a busy business park overall. But we had a huge announcement recently in the area regarding new lands being acquired and being set aside for future development. I'm going to take you back though to the middle of August last year. You said there was clear neglect when you referred to the IDA and job creation in County Offaly. Even in September this year, not last year, in September this year, you accused the IDA of showing favouritism to Westmeath. What has changed in between? Because we had an announcement just last week of a 65 hectare site out on the outskirts of Tullamore.
Well, look, I suppose what has changed in the meantime, I suppose it's been a long battle to get the announcement for the IDA to purchase that land on the outskirts of Tullamore. And nothing has changed. I suppose what we have done is we've kept the pressure on. Again, this is something that I've campaigned on before I became a TD, as a councillor, as a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I met with the IDA on many, many occasions. I brought it up in the local council, the Offaly County Council Chamber, on lots of occasions. And I didn't change when I got to the Dáil. I brought it up on a number of occasions with different ministers over the last year. All of that works. It keeps the pressure on. And I have got to say that Offaly County Council and the Chief Executive there, Anna Marie Delaney, has done a huge amount of work on this as well, and has been working with the IDA in order for this to become a success.
Does that now give the powers that be the licence effectively to go and start looking at the types of companies that potentially might use those sites, or to even identify the sectors or the business types that would best occupy that park? And I guess looking from a regional development perspective.
Yeah, well, absolutely. If you don't have a space, you can't bring them here. And now that we have the space, it opens up a huge amount of stuff. It allows Tullamore again to be marketed as an area that is open for companies to come in here and locate. You talked about Cardinal Health. Cardinal Health, unfortunately, will be closing, and that will be the last site that's available on the existing industrial park there in Tullamore. But I believe from discussions with IDA, they're very hopeful that they either have somebody or will get somebody very, very soon after that, after Cardinal Health move out of there. So that means that park is full, and that's why we have to have this other one. And it opens up a huge amount of opportunity for the whole area. And when I talk about the Tullamore, the outskirts of Tullamore, Tullamore is the capital town of Offaly. And a rising tide floats all boats. This is good for the whole county.
Whole county and possibly the region as well, because I know over Christmas there, Deputy Brian Stanley from Laois was quite vocal about the lack of IDA jobs, that there are only 140 or 50 actual what we'd class IDA jobs in County Laois, and putting that call out again for more to be done there to bring more jobs in. Laois probably a bit ahead of the curve there in terms of the land banks it has bought up in order to be ready for that FDI development. So let's see across the Midlands what 2026 brings for all our counties. Thanks to Tony McCormack TD for Offaly there for speaking to me about that there just in the last week or so. But a big thank you to all Stephen's contributors, to Lorraine McLaughlin from Dovida. If you're looking for a career change and you want to become a caregiver and you always felt maybe it's not something for you or you don't have the requisite training, well, they can put all that on for you and they can create a very flexible job that might just give you that extra bit of income that you're looking for, or maybe a change of career that you've been looking for quite a while. Big thanks to Jack Murray from MediaHQ too for talking to me about those 10 practical steps that you should look at for PR for your business in the year ahead, and to John McCann for speaking about auto-enrolment and potential insolvencies in the next 6 to 8 months in small businesses and what we need to try and do to support them. Anyway, stay tuned. Joe's here next.